softly as a songbird. Atlas.
Legend says that Hercules swept Cerberus right off his feet and effortlessly set him down softly as a songbird. Atlas kept the world upon his back and every day wondered whether he could stand it any longer. And Tara Reid came out to say the man they tried to label the messiah of morality was really just another stand it any longer. And I don't intend to hesitate when asked who was the stronger. Tara, like Assange, knew that carrying the truth would be the hardest labor. Tara knew that her assailant wasn't gonna make us any safer, and knew he's just the type of man to hand a decent foreign leader US printed walking papers, and knew he'd be relentless and aggressive in the war he'd wage upon her very character, that his attempts to weaken and degrade and embarrass her would be her only compensation. But I strongly doubt that anyone could ever have foreseen the stream of hate that came from quote-unquote progressives and the self-styled titans of survivor advocation. So if you really think there's something to be gained out of sharing your pain with the world, you are sorely mistaken. The Biden team just dragged their feet addressing Tara's allegations. Until they had a decent list of smears, then they aired them out on every station. And it turns out no one wants to hear the truth of who they praised as being worthy of such bloated liberal celebration. That no one wants to really know the person they've so valiantly defended, even when it meant they had to gloat and shit all over someone braver than they'd be if given the occasion. Now cue the faceless comment squad invasion. Cue those fuckers crawling out the woodwork to come analyze the way you wore your hair and what you wear. Like your appearance waives your rights, or that somehow you're the reason for your situation. Somehow they've decided you should bear responsibility for what such monstrous men insist on doing. Somehow they're deluded by the empty, hypocritical, and useless fucking platitudes that bastard keeps on spewing. And I think it's very telling that the best of their excuses when they try to come and justify our president's abuses is a hearty "but Trump." In which case I'll remind you that you never saw the news attempt to sell us Donald Trump like he was morally upstanding or a decent human. But when Joe says something bigoted or ogles someone's little kid, CNN says, "Isn't this refreshing? Biden's like a mix of JFK and FDR with all the finer parts of Harry Truman." Christ, I know that they don't think that we're the brightest, but at least pretend we got a couple lumens. Ask yourself if you have ever questioned what they fed you, or do you just shut your eyes and then consume it? And now ask yourself if you ate every one of Biden's lies under guise of harm reduction and the promise of a slight improvement. And now imagine long ago that Biden chose to show you who he really was by traumatizing you for his amusement. Now imagine that you watched him touch a Bible with those filthy hands, and then assume the power of the highest seat in all the land, of knowing your attacker wields a global coalition born of three-letter agencies who'll make a life's mission out of trying to discredit you through lies, damn lies, and collusion. Big tech is never gonna separate from our surveillance state. Fuck's sakes, they're just a breath away from total fusion. So there will come a time where even if you see the light, your voice will never reach the sky through all the bots and all the noise pollution. So trust us when we tell you that the masking of abuses is perhaps this country's oldest institution. And I know nothing nobler than facing it in honor of the truth when you know that the people holding power have been neutralizing truth since there was wet ink on the Constitution. So know that Tara's truth is something crucial to the movement. And if you see yourself a partner to the revolution, help this country see through all the baseless propaganda through the crux of Joe's illusions. And recognize that Tara Reid gave everything she had so she could tell us what the truth is. Recognize the decent thing to do when someone bears their soul and shows their bruises is not to ask for context or offer up your own solutions. Your job is just to listen with an honest mind and put yourself on Tara's side a moment so you understand the path she chooses. That there is no instant fame worth the dragging of your name. And if that's what you think, you've a lot to learn about the kind of facts the mob can handle and the kind that it refuses. You've a lot to learn about the news and all its many uses. Guess you've yet to learn the truth the news will serve as fruit from which they've squeezed out all the juices. And we all eat the husk and just pretend it's full of nutrients and isn't really useless. But the jaws of our ability to yield accountability are absolutely toothless. So don't you kid yourself that any lips are being loosened. They won't ever tell us where the bodies are or show us where the proof is. It's on you to recognize the lechery our president so regularly oozes. It's on you to muster up some honesty and ask yourself how Biden won your trust, but it's America that loses. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises. Open up your eyes and learn to recognize the bruises.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
The last track, I think I only blinked once. I skipped lunch. Blinked twice. Christ, shut your eyes. Now open wide. Fascists took the nation and inflation took a supersize. It's sad to say your teachers couldn't quite make the ends collide. But now you'll probably get to see them on the weekends doing Uber drives. See, lube it with a little oil. One, it tastes expensive too. You'd be surprised how well it helps you open up your throat so you consume the lie of human rights that was sold to you by suits and ties, designer scents on plastic men with patient fangs and ancient vice. You know, the kind of greed that makes a person lose the sight of morals, so it's easier to sleep at night. It's easier to ease their minds and pick a foreign people we can demonize. If you take a sec to sink into how war criminals think, you'll know you'd never want to see inside. If every man's an open book to look within, theirs are bound in human skin and not designed for human eyes. They are wearing human skin, but they can simply not be humanized. They aren't worth the lowest of the poor they swore to crucify. Holy sweet Geneva, there's a mass grave full of dead believers you called the police on cause you don't believe in squatters' rights. You believe the sanctity of human life is relative to human worth in terms of work and dollar signs. So listen when I say you need to find the light of day before it's too late to apologize. Like holy sweet Geneva, here's a mass grave you can colonize. Because you seem to love to talk about the spirit of America. But if you saw the spirit of this land's supposed character, I think that you'd be calling ICE. And I also think the actual America is truly represented by the call to ICE. Is represented best by the descendants of some immigrants bitching about the immigrants, snitching on some immigrants, then playing dumb and innocent like good little Christians when their neighbors get deported. Until they're screaming at the store that they waited 20 minutes more because the staff was short. Because some ordinary bigot started waging war on immigrants. And honey, we'll just keep deporting because like your first vote and each election since, it turned out that the man you are supporting ended up to just be twice the fucking bigot as the bigot that he wins against. But I was not among the herd. A single word from Biden stirred a tingle in the cynic's sense. I knew that a vote for Joe was more like Reagan 2.0. I could smell that sarin smoke that choked around the river bend, and so I spoke about a living end, about an anchor thrown to drowning men, a democratic president, a country never found again. A man who marinated in the blood this land was founded in. A crime bill that contains sufficient lethal ends to drown us in. All written by a man who wears a crown of sins, who currently is sleeping in a bed of sins. And it's no wonder those who truly understand the meaning of democracy are not too keen to let us in. It's no wonder other countries can't conceive of skipping meals or missing rent or being on the streets because you can't afford your medicine. That's uniquely American. And Joe has proved to be the most disturbingly American of presidents. I shiver when I think of what's to come if he's the precedent. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all and just how I remembered it. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all, and just how I remembered it.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Fuck.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning.
We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal and the world is not the same. Situated for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face.
Nancy gonna cut you a check too late. 2 years after your funeral's paid, 2 years after the grave, she'll be a little stronger for all of the dollars she saved. Watching you wake, watching you cling to your family slipping away. Watch her do nothing but pray. Watch her condemn the Republicans, take them to brunch and then shrug it away. Now watch us be outraged half of a day, then pick a new hero to face our leaders and think they could beat them, playing the game they played since Pelosi had real human blood in her veins. They're all one and the same, sold off stocks and they all maintain that the risk was benign and the virus was tame. Flash forward in 40 Sunday mornings fade, 250,000 people in its wake and the cruise ship sailed today. So motherfucker, don't shine a light in my face. Wait.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning,
Wait.
Sunday morning.
Wait, we're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal and the world is not the same. Situated for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never.
No, Indy left. What is happening here?
To check out independentleft.news.
The Indie News Network.
Indie Left News.
Oh, hey, Indie Left.
Independentleft.news. Great work.
Indie Left News.
Independentleft.news.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News. Shout out.
Oh, what's up, Independent Left?
Friend show.
Thank you, independentleft.news.
The INN, Indie, you're wonderful.
I think Indie was onto something.
Independent News Network, Indie News.
Yeah.
What's up, Indie, over on Rockfin?
Independent News Network, also known as INN.
Indie Left News.
I don't know if I would have made it through that 3 weeks without Indie, honestly.
No, I was just going to ask Indy.
A huge thank you and shout out to Indie Left.
No, you know what we're doing? We're world building, Indie.
Indie Left News.
You were doing the INN recruiting.
Indie News.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News.
Check out Independent Left News.
At Kennedy News.
I see Indy's in the chat. Hi, Indy. Okay, great.
Who are these people?
Okay, who are these people? Come on, I had to add that, of course. That's kind of a network signature for INN. Hi, everybody. Yeah. I just peeked you out. This is, how do we miss that? It is Sunday night. It is 10 o'clock. This is Indy. That's Reef right there. We're going to get to some stories.
Hello.
Howdy, everyone. We have,
We'll do it live.
yes, I'm very excited. We're going to do it live. Happy Easter to Mad Mom Anon down there. You see that pop up. We now can show Rockfin and Rumble chats on screen, just like we do the regular YouTube, Twitch, and what else? What else do we show? I'm not showing Facebook. Or if you're on Facebook, go to one of the other ones. Rumble, Rockfin. That's what we really want you on. So now we can show those things up on screen. Very cool. Wow, what a week we had at INN, huh? Oh my goodness. Just in the last day, the last day and a half, we had, first of all, Jesse Jet. We did an impromptu 1 hour live mini concert Friday night, and I just stitched together some live performances from American Tradition that were singles, and they were off of the last 2 albums, and we put together about an hour-long show. It was great. We had a great time. You should definitely check that out. And then last night you had Angel doing the wrestling show, and we had Snow Himbo doing the Snow Himbo game stream. We're gonna have boats coming up after this, so don't go anywhere for that. And that's weird. Is that just showing you a tab? All right. Anyway, we're going to go live. We're going to do some stories. I've got 4 stories, actually 5. Oh, I had 4 stories. And then last night I saw something. I'm like, nobody's talked about this. And this is the kind of stuff we cover on How Do We Miss That? So even though I'm not crazy about where it came from and who, whatever, but we can talk about that afterwards. But welcome to the show, everyone. Hopefully everyone's going to filter in soon. And we're going to get going with our first story of the day. Yes, I'm stealing that from Kid Cabello now. Just borrowing. It's an homage. All right. So last week, we talked about the Boeing whistleblower. Did anything happen? Did anything happen this week about with Boeing? Nah. Like literally. So we did the show Sunday night. Monday morning, I wake up to learn that the CEO of Boeing has now resigned. Holy shit. So not only the CEO, but also some other key executives. So we've got this article from Truthout talking about mostly Boeing, but how the breakdown of safety is not unique to Boeing, that it's endemic to capitalism, which Snow Himbo would absolutely be screaming about and agreeing with. Yes, capitalism is the answer to all of our problems, and let's get rid of that. This is from Susan Kang from Truthout, not Sharon Zhang. Don't get the two confused. But the subheading is that heads are rolling at Boeing, but new leadership doesn't alter the labor conditions and profit motives that erode safety, which is pretty much what I tweeted that morning, which was that they're cleaning house in order to say that they cleaned house and that now things are going to be different. This is the Alaska Airlines plane that had the door fly off, by the way, that made the emergency landing at Portland.
Front fell off?
Roof flies off. That's George Carlin talked about that years ago. So, in a dramatic turn of events, Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun, as JJ Bibbs, or as Cy Oppenheimer refers to him as Hoondog, announced on March 25th, 2024, that he will step down at the end of the year following the company's poor safety record, negative press, and significant financial losses following the multiple safety problems with its 737 MAX jets. Because I know for like when I decide to leave a job, I can stay there for another 9 months before I actually have to leave, even though it's because of your performance, right? That happens. Sure. The now infamous Alaska Airlines January flight, which you saw above, landing after a door panel blew off the plane mid-flight, led to the grounding of 171 737 MAX jets and subsequent mass cancellation of flights, of course, and an FAA order to suspend production on the 737 MAX. God only knows what that cost them. The NTSB has made the flight an investigative priority. That's nice. Since then, more dramatic accidents, as we know, have occurred, including a cracked windshield, plane fires. I don't think I've heard of a plane fire. Fuel leaks, stuck rudder pedals, at least one tire failure, and other problems. Yikes. That's no bueno. I hope I'm getting in an Airbus next time I get in a plane. I'll tell you that right now. So, the FAA announced in a February 26 report conducted by a panel of experts, including government, industry, labor, and academics over the past year, that Boeing failed 33 of 89 safety audits. That's all in its 737 MAX manufacturing process. Now, what did that lead to? The report led to a devaluation of Boeing stock, a market value of about $45 billion in 2024. That's a big hit. To say this has been devastating for the company and for the airline travelers' confidence is an understatement. Like I just said, I would definitely prefer to fly in an Airbus A320 right now. Calhoun, Hoondog, is not the only leader who departed, we know, or who has said they will. Other members of the executive leadership at the company have stepped down or announced their intention to as well. This massive, colossal fuck up, and all these people are just treating it like, meh, I'll hang out and I'll leave at the end of the year. I'll see. I'll be around. Like, how about people don't want you around? How about like some accountability for your actions? No, I guess not. So, while the dramatic news of the deposed CEO has made many headlines, it's also a corporate sleight of hand, like I said earlier, that obscures the ways in which corporate profit motives, including a failed safety culture that continues to leave workers vulnerable to reprisal, as well as ongoing attempts to undercut union plans, have promoted unsafe production practices permitted by a weak regulatory state regime. Now, a lot of people like Matt Stoller would argue that the regulatory state is actually very strong in this country, and things like this and child labor would say otherwise. Now, what she's saying here is that this latest corporate leadership shuffle is a signal to consumers and investors that the company means to improve confidence in Boeing's products, but we cannot understand the Boeing controversy in a vacuum. Right? So what is she talking about? Boeing was once known as the industry leader in manufacturing safe and well-made jets. Right? The 737, not the MAX, the 737 was the best-selling airplane in history, used by 80 airlines Actually, with most of them operating in Asia. I didn't know that. That was something I learned reading this, right? Welcome to Rumble Go Start. All right. So, but in October 2018 and March 2019, less than 5 months apart, the Boeing 737 MAX jets experienced fatal crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia, killing a total of 346 people. And these were failures. The FAA, of course, under President Orange Man Bad Donald Trump, was reluctant to ground the jets, but finally had to after following the lead of China's Aviation Authority, Canada, EU, and 10 other countries, while the jet underwent a 20-month safety review process. That's a long time to be grounded and not use these planes that they invested billions of dollars in. All right? So that's pretty bad. The agency then greenlit the jet to take flight again in November 2020, but still concerns persisted. Aviation experts argue that Boeing consistently has chosen financial gains over an abundance of caution when dealing with pressing safety concerns. Capitalism is another way to describe that. Much has already been written about how financialization of Boeing, exemplified by its relocation of some production from Puget Sound in 2001, was a key turning point for the company. Right. Okay. So their leaders knew there were serious safety problems with their company's 737 MAX jet and other products, yet they failed to institute systematic changes despite the fact that workers gave them such warnings, like we talked about last week.
Yep.
The American Airlines Pilots Union also urged Boeing to address 737 safety concerns in a meeting with Boeing executives prior to the deadly 2019 Ethiopian Airlines crash. Pilots asked Boeing leadership, this is unbelievable, to fix a malfunctioning anti-stall system called the MCAS. I've heard of this before, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, which is designed to prevent the 737 from climbing too steeply and stalling, but Boeing's vice president pushed back, claiming that it wasn't clear that a malfunctioning system caused the 2018 Malaysian air crash. Then, to make matters worse, Boeing also refused to honor one pilot's request for additional training on 737, reprimanding him instead. And I'm like, wait a minute. I gotta see this story, because this is weird. All right. So this takes me to a court story. This is linked, by the way, hyperlinked in this Truthout article to a court story, because I had to follow this down a rabbit hole about, like, okay, it wasn't just a 737. They actually asked for more training on the MAX. So when I started reading into this, basically what the airline pilot that was requesting this said was that I had not basically been, I had 45 minutes of an iPad simulator to get into this airplane and then be responsible for 186 people. Here it was. I was going to see the airplane for the first time in 45 minutes before departure, have 45 minutes to adjust to this new aircraft, after which I was going to have 189 new people in the back that I was responsible for. So I filed a report with the company that I'm not comfortable flying as a pilot in command of this. That is reasonable, right? But here's the story. This was 2019, by the way. His simulator request was denied, as the carrier didn't have simulators for the MAX, and even now, only a few airlines even have them ready for training. Right? A request to fly with an instructor the first time was also denied, but eventually, after a 45-minute conversation with the head of the airline's 737 training department, he said they agreed originally that he could fly with an instructor on his first MAX flight, which was scheduled for July, between two U.S. West Coast cities. So he gets to L.A., and there's no instructor. He calls the flight duty manager to ask where the instructor is, and he said, if you don't fly, then you're off the trip. And he's like, well, I'm not going to fly. And then he got taken off the trip and put a mark on his record called a missed trip, even though he was sitting in the seat, and they pulled him out because he refused to fly without the instructor that they agreed to provide. He said that missed trip cost him about $3,000 in lost pay, not a big deal, but as well as being a black mark on his record of reliability. That's the big deal. He then raised the issue with the union, filed reports internally with the FAA, and as info about his experience percolated to other pilots, several told him they had shared his concerns on training for the MAX. Like 50 of them, according to this guy. But the biggest thing is that he kept saying this is a completely different aircraft than the 737. It has different instrumentation in different places that's manufactured by different companies and run completely different software. And we're supposed to know how to operate all of this the same? Wow. So I thought that was interesting that he got reprimanded for requesting additional training time because they didn't have the means to train him. Changes in the federal safety regulation of aviation demonstrate how those endemic problems within Boeing's safety regime were permitted. Regulatory oversight of aviation was understaffed and under-resourced during the Trump administration, intentionally by Trump, by the way. He wanted to starve all these agencies, make them look incompetent. With the FAA's top position was vacant for 14 months. I remember he wouldn't appoint secretaries and heads of agencies. Then they had temporary heads in places for a long time, for about as long as they could legally be allowed to be. All right. So Trump's FAA gave more authority to private companies, but his admin isn't solely responsible for this deregulatory shift, as the FAA has been moving towards sharing regulatory oversight with manufacturers over the years. This sounds like the pharmaceutical industry, where they basically regulate themselves. Right? It began in 2004 under the Bush administration, against the protests of aviation unions who warned that such a move would hurt the safety of the industry and lead to more accidents. Right? While the dramatic news, this is just the thing, one of those quote caption things. Democratic administrations, by the way, have also had a hand in dismantling regulatory oversight. It's not just the Republicans. During the Obama administration, the FAA continued to increasingly delegate safety monitoring and oversight to private companies. Why why make something public and part of public safety when you can privatize it and somebody can profit from it, right? Part of the justification, right, for continuing the practice were concerns about the increasing competitive pressure from foreign jet plane manufacturing rivals above the concerns of watchdog investigations. This practice is now deeply institutionalized. Okay. I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to, again, repeat that sentence because that seems vaguely important. All right. Early on, during the Obama administration, here we go, the FAA continued to increasingly delegate safety monitoring and oversight to private companies. That seems like a big mistake, but part of the justification for continuing the practice were concerns about the increasing competitive pressure from foreign jet plane manufacturing rivals above the concerns of government watchdog investigations. Why? Here's why. FAA certified employees at private companies now do 90% of certified certifications, but there's also a lot of foreign regulators that are signing off on this stuff that may have access to sensitive equipment and stuff that, proponents of this sharing regulation seek to justify the agreement by arguing that industry innovation is outpacing the expertise of government regulators. But, of course, even private sector regulators are suffering from a lack of sufficient personnel, with high rates of turnover and retirements after COVID. What's interesting is that Truthout would never mention retirements because of COVID mandates is another thing. The airline pilots that had to retire and resign. Yeah, that guy. All right. This was also confirmed in the February FAA report, which confirmed the turnover of experienced personnel is a major concern. That's no bueno. That's no bueno.
So they're worried about
China.
Always. They're always worried about China. The FAA report always also revealed that the endemic anti-safety biases within Boeing's production process, right? February 2024 FAA report, FAA expert panels report, which is based on hundreds of employee interviews and review of 4,000 pages of documents, stated, quote, Boeing employees across all disciplines and roles expressed concerns over the lasting power of the SMS, or Safety Management System, program and its safety initiatives. This raises concerns about the sustainability of SMS. The lack of feedback and or delay in providing feedback jeopardizes the longevity of SMS. Yes, I think that's the intent. Because according SMS. According to that report, employees did not always understand. They didn't always understand Boeing's safety management systems. Of course not. Employees didn't always know the appropriate reporting channels and were not informed about the outcomes of their reports. Seems vaguely important. Employees also shared experience of retaliation and interference, especially in regard to salary and furlough ranking, that occurred when workers expressed safety concerns. Again, last week we talked about a guy who's no longer on this planet alive because of that, possibly, allegedly. These retaliatory practices exacerbated the disconnect between the goals of corporate leadership and actual shop floor practices. Workers then found out anew that reporting safety concerns would lead to slowdowns in safety certification or production processes, which in turn could hurt economic goals. This is like union busting in a way. No, don't report the safety stuff, because then we won't be able to make our quarterly profits and we won't be able to get these things flying rather than getting it right. A workplace where employees cannot speak up without fear of reprisal and where their input isn't integrated in everyday production practices cannot be a company that truly prioritizes product and consumer safety. Yes.
Sounds like every fucking corporation right now out there.
Well, that's literally like the title of this, is that this is an endemic of capitalism. This is exactly what you get as a result, right? As much as this story is one of consumer safety, Boeing's problems are also the result of an anti-worker culture. Rich Plunkett, who's their director of strategic development at their union, the Society of Professional Engineering Employees in Aerospace, released a statement in conjunction with the publishing of the February FAA report, right? He says, quote, our members have long reported a disconnect between the messaging they get from Boeing headquarters in Chicago or Virginia and the messages they get from their direct supervisors here. Quality and safety must be the Boeing company's core values, embraced by everyone, but the report reflects the reality that people who see something are afraid of saying something for fear of jeopardizing their careers. Because that's what's been happening. And as a result of the FAA report, the union requested the creation of an aviation safety action program, a collaboration between Boeing and FAA that would allow workers to bring forward safety concerns, including production and design errors, without fear of retaliation. And how is the FAA going to protect those workers from Boeing exactly? Sorry, I don't.
Safety nets.
They could find them. They could ground planes. They could give away routes. They could do a bunch of different. They're not gonna.
They could build a wall.
We're gonna build a wall. Here we go. Like we talked about last week, perhaps one of the most tragic parts of this story is the loss of whistleblower John Barnett, Mitch, a former quality control manager who expressed multiple concerns about the safety at the company's 787 Dreamliner manufacturing plant in South Carolina. 787's also been grounded for multiple times for safety concerns, including over smoke and fire incidents. As we said, Barnett noted the significant differences in safety reporting in his unionized plant in Everett, Washington, in contrast to the failures of safety reporting in his non-unionized Charleston, South Carolina Boeing plant. There was one quality assurance inspector per 15 mechanics in Everett, but only one per 50 mechanics in Charleston, and many of those mechanics were also brand new to the industry. Barnett was participating in that deposition relating to his suit against the company, as we talked about last week, for the retaliation he suffered at Boeing for his whistleblowing activities, and then, of course, was found dead of an, I would say, alleged self-inflicted gunshot wound in the parking lot of a Charleston, South Carolina Holiday Inn on March 9th. May he rest in power. And yeah, that's a bad one. Yeah, don't take. Yeah, you got to take her friend. But evidence of Boeing's poor operations and organizational culture also came to light when the company declared it could not find documents related to the Alaska Airlines blown off butt plug, in response to a query from a Federation investigation. I don't think that's right. I think it's a federal investigation.
I don't know what happened. We lost all the documentation. I don't know what happened.
No, just a few key pages. Just like
the
with
cameras were just off.
Just like with the black box, and we'll talk about that later. It's clear that the company's toxicity towards safety-oriented employees has been devastating, as reflected by the February FAA report. The poor working conditions at Boeing were amplified, by a terrible contract negotiation in 2014, in which workers agreed to a contract that included givebacks on pensions, minimum wage increases, which was only 4% over 10 years. That equates to like less than 0.5% a year. Wow. And then it also locked them in this suboptimal set of conditions for a decade. To force an end to the company's fixed pension plan, Boeing threatened to take 777X production from Seattle to South Carolina, again moving it from union to non-union. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, which represents many Boeing employees, about 35%, is taking cues from the UAW and tight labor market to make strong demand. So that's nice. The union, it said, is this year is looking for 40% wage increases, and a return of the company's pension plan, in addition to other workplace protections. You're not going to get it. I mean, considering considering that safety problems have emerged as Boeing has shifted production away from the highly unionized Puget Sound region to the South District 751 to the south, right? District 751 IAM President John Holden wants Boeing to commit to multiple decades of production in the Northwest. Why? They're not headquartered there anymore. They're moving stuff away from the Northwest, not toward the Northwest, although IAM machinists who have the experience are also requesting a seat on Boeing's board as a way to promote great future safety. Again, nice. They have zero, pull. But while the future of the 737 MAX remains unclear, what is clear is the retreat of the regulatory state, combined with Boeing's aggressive attacks on workers, both in terms of bargaining with unions and retaliating against individual workers who allegedly being involved with somehow seeing them no longer on this planet, has contributed to the enduring marginalization of safety culture at the company. Ooh, that's a devastating accusation and indictment. An enduring marginalization of safety culture. Some advocates see the FBI and DOJ's criminal investigation into the Alaska Airlines as progress, but this won't be the first criminal proceeding against Boeing. Right? While some consumers remain understandably frightened and are deliberately avoiding Boeing flights, these problems are not exclusive to Boeing. Breakdown of consumer safety measures is endemic to the neoliberal capitalist pursuit of profit in the provision of public services and to the employment regime that continually fails to provide adequate work protections for their workers. Workers' right to have a voice in their workplaces and to speak freely about product safety concerns is a necessary minimum for the safety of their products. Only when this basic condition is met in the U.S. Can keep people in the U.S. fly safely with confidence in the quality of their airplanes. So this was a little on the long side, but I just thought that there was a lot there with regard to the history of what Boeing's been doing, and and how they're going to try to sweep this under the rug, how they've been moving production to from the Pacific Northwest. People know them like as a Seattle type of company, but they're no longer a Seattle company. That's a good point, Bad Cookies. Have you hit the like button yet, my fellow INN viewers? I hope you have. Gamer, good for you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So we've also got people that are hopping over here on Rockfin. I'm looking for it. Wow, I have to scroll pretty far to find it. Yeah, Mad Mom says it sounds like they're having some QA issues. Oh, it just scrolled. Damn it.
No.
There it is. Yay!
You got it?
We can put Rockfin up. I am really happy with that.
I mean, he could before. He just didn't want to drag a monitor capture.
No, I had one. It just didn't look it didn't look right. That's all. So, yeah, I had this weird thing this morning, or last night. I found an article that originally I didn't really want to cover. Now, wait, before I get to that, this is silly and stupid, and which is why we're going to play it. So this was on Insta.
Yesterday, the company is still requesting engineering exemptions. Boeing's annual incentive plan changed from rewarding quality and safety to rewarding people hitting DEI and climate targets.
Welcome to Boeing, where we make earnings per share and also, I guess, planes. Sir, I still have a concern about the safety of our process for the Have you seen our new incentive pay? Our new plane is fuel efficient. It's the Prius of the skies. And once we hit all of those ESG targets, we've got enough to worry about, guys. Diluting our key priorities is problematic for safety. Don't you think there might one day be consequences to this? None that I can foresee. It's raining.
Another plane forced to make an emergency landing yesterday. The company is still requesting engineering exemptions. Boeing's annual incentive plan changed from rewarding quality and safety to rewarding people hitting DEI and climate targets.
Welcome to Boeing, where we make earnings per share and also, I guess, planes. Sir, I still have a concern about the safety of our process for the Have you seen our new incentive pay? Our new plane is fuel efficient. It's the Prius of the skies. And once we hit all of those ESG targets, we've got enough to worry about, guys. Diluting our key priorities is problematic for safety. Don't you think there might one day be consequences to this? None that I can foresee. It's raining men. That's a dude, yeah, it's raining men. Amen. Our passengers, unlike our fuselage, will be screwed under this plan. It'll be fine. Things could not be going any worse. Have you seen our diversity score? Our executive team and door fastenings both have fewer nuts than before. If we reach our CO2 standards, I can buy that Panerai. Ooh, I really like that one. The only carbon plummeting is the body of that guy. Oh, don't tell me it's happening again. It's raining man. Another dude, yeah, it's raining man. Amen. Like Jim Morrison's overdose, this is really bad for the doors, man. Somebody need a bailout? No. Yeah, a little bit. That plane is on fire. No. It lit itself for Palestine.
Another plane
It lit.
And what?
Yes. I was like, wait. It said what? Yes, that plane is on fire. It lit itself on Palestine. Like, I don't quite understand that,
Okay.
but the rest of it was kind of funny, and I was like, that's good. That was, I gotta bring that. It's raining planes. Yes, that's amen. Yes, amen. I don't know when we're gonna debut the Care Bear. I think we dropped it in the private chats for some people to see, and Colin can put that out whenever he'd like. But funny. Okay, so we've got another story here, and like I said, I wasn't gonna necessarily do this. This was added to the roster last minute, and you know what? Let me put it up on this one. The police, go figure, have a dark money slush fund?
Like with Sting? Like
Roxanne,
Sting and...
You don't have to put on the red light. No, not that Sting. Not that police, unfortunately. The police, I love you, man.
Damn.
Don't stand so close to me.
I love you, man.
So, dude, that's a great Cheech and Chong bit that they do. It was very funny. They guy at a concert. Anyway, so corporate interests. Yes, corporate America funding your stormtroopers now and providing them with equipment and little oversight for it. Yay! So this is not the lever. Not crazy about the lever anymore. I used to be a big fan, but this one popped across and I hadn't seen anyone talk about this, and I was like, this is an important story, so we should.
At least it's not Sirota.
It's not Sirota. No, it's not Sirota.
Yeah.
It's Katya something or other. It's somebody who I'd never heard of.
Not Sirota.
Yes. Right? Dun, 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 dun. Not Sir. Oh, all right. Now we're gonna have to have Jesse make a song called "It's Not Sirota." Right?
Not Sirota.
Yes, not Sirota. All right. So how do I take this off? There we go. Next. Private donors, including big box stores, fossil fuel companies, and tech giants, are secretly giving hundreds of millions of dollars annually to law enforcement agencies and related foundations, allowing police to buy specialized weapons and technology with little public oversight. That seems like it might be a mild concern. The experts say the huge deluge, say that 5 times, right, of police dark money funding, detailed in a new University of Chicago working paper and an additional analysis shared exclusively with the lever, leaves law enforcement beholden to the companies and powerful donors bankrolling them rather than the communities that officers are sworn to serve. As if they're actually sworn to serve a community. We know cops protect property, they do not protect people. Quote, Robert Vargas, who's a professor of sociology at the University of Chicago and co-author of the study, he says, the big picture finding is that the world of private donations to police is a lot bigger and more complex than previously estimated, and that will turn out to be a massive understatement. So this study analyzed the database of nonprofit tax returns, which found that from 2014 to 2019, more than 600 private donors and organizations collectively funneled $461 million to police and other nonprofits supporting police. A figure that Vargas said was without a doubt an undercount. Not quite $1 billion, but yes. 461 million, which was also without a doubt an undercount, as it was also based on organizations' own disclosures about their giving, because we know that they're very forthcoming with their disclosure. The private money comes in part from big retailers like Target and Walmart, oil companies like Chevron and Shell and Microsoft and other big tech players, companies that have touted their support of law enforcement for years. There's a whole other story about Warren Buffett's son. The new research exposes how easily private donors can secretly funnel money to police. Anonymous donors use asset managers like Fidelity or Goldman Sachs Charitable Fund to fund the litany of police foundations and other opaque nonprofit organizations that support police work, the researchers found. Clandestine funds have made Fidelity's charitable arm one of the largest private donors to police in the country. You want to hurt cops? Take your money out of Fidelity.
Mm.
In many jurisdictions,
and I'm sure like a ton of other banks.
I'm sure. But in many jurisdictions, private funding for police comes with virtually no oversight and can be used to buy surveillance technology, high-tech weapons, and other items that agencies might otherwise struggle to justify. Like what? For instance, the Baltimore Police Department for years used private money to fund a secret aerial surveillance program that could track the locations of people throughout the city in real time. Billionaire philanthropists in Texas provided money for the program, but routed the funds through a nonprofit in Baltimore, which allowed the program to stay for a time out of the public eye. Of course, when news of the program became public, it caused an outcry and was eventually ruled unconstitutional in court. Because I definitely want Texas billionaires and Texas, billionaire philanthropists funding Baltimore surveillance programs. And if anything went down in Baltimore that he ever needed access to, he's going to get access to that. Right?
Like a bridge.
Well.
What?
Allegedly, Reef. Allegedly.
In
LA, the city's police department used money from Target, also routed through a local police foundation, to purchase software from Palantir, VC Peter Thiel's data analytics company, that provides police massive amounts of sensitive data and purports to identify crime hotspots. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Not cool, right?
Not to be confused with Nico House's hotspot.
No.
Different hotspot.
Totally different hotspot. In West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Though, interesting.
Privately funded police nonprofits have purchased ballistic helmets, drones, motorcycles, and even horses for the city's police department. Because, the city shouldn't be able to buy their own horses. Such surveillance technology and military gear is deployed disproportionately in black communities and low-income neighborhoods. Go figure. Right? The heightened surveillance intensifies local policing, which research has shown can harm community health and well-being. Yes, it can. Private funding represents a tiny fraction of the money that states and cities spend on police, which by some estimates amounts to more than $100 billion annually. We're not even talking half of 1 billion. But still, it's a lot of fucking money. In comparison to their municipal budgets, it seems like a drop in the budget. It seems like a drop in the bucket, but that money has an outsized impact. What do you mean? It's really important to look at how this private money is being spent. Most of it in the municipal budgets is going to salaries in benefits. Okay, this is going to equipment and experimental technology, and it's all outside of public discussion, and all even outside of public reporting. It was, as Armstrong continued, a huge slush fund that is completely unaccountable. I would love to have a $100 million slush fund that is unaccountable. I'd love to have $1 million slush fund that's unaccountable. Let's just say that.
I'd love to have 1 million slushies that are unaccounted for.
Well, sure.
Blue raspberry.
Right. Now we have a sense of just how big that slush fund is. So what do you mean? This is a kind of shell corporation, right? One of the most common ways that private donations, whether from oil companies, billionaires, or big box retailers, make their way to law enforcement is through police foundations, which are nonprofits established to support law enforcement in a particular city, such as the New York City Police Foundation or the LA Police Foundation. Now, according to public data from the city of New York, the New York City Police Department reported $30 million in private donations from 2019 to 22, of which almost all of it, 26.8 million, nearly 90%, came from the New York City Police Foundation. So basically, they're the ones that are providing all of the charitable private funding donations. Police foundations position themselves as charities, soliciting donations and then providing that money to local law enforcement. So it's a write-off on top of everything. The supporters say that the work can improve officer morale, that the additional funding can supplement strained public budgets. We've been overfunding the cops for years.
I thought the margarita machine in the break room improved officer morale, not,
Right, although municipal police tend to be flush with public resources. That's correct. Flush with public resources. I don't know what they're talking about. Now, I refer to police foundations as a kind of shell corporation, and this is an associate professor of criminal justice at the University of Winnipeg who studies police foundations in the U.S. and Canada, eh? Let's get Himbo and Yeti on this one. They can move money around in ways that public bodies can't. They don't really have robust reporting or disclosure mechanisms. And the term dark money, he said, was an appropriate way to describe their support. Police foundations, like most charities, do not have to publicly report their donors until an expose from The Intercept, for instance. The New York City Police Foundation didn't disclose that it received a $1 million donation from the UAE in 2012, even when that money was passed directly along to police to support criminal investigations in that city, quote unquote. Holy crap.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was to The Intercept?
Yes.
Ugh.
There are some 250 police foundations in the U.S., of which nearly 80% say that they fund technology and equipment for police, like you said, drones and robot dogs, as well as programming for officers and PR campaigns. Just what we need, private slush funds funding PR campaigns to make the stormtroopers benevolent. Thank you. While such organizations have been around for decades, Walby said that they've grown steadily since the 1990s, particularly in response to calls to limit the ever-increasing public funding for police, which has nearly tripled over the last several decades. Yes, research has documented increasing revenues for police foundations year after year after year. Quote, what we notice now is that a big period of growth happened after 2020. Anything happen at the end of 2020 and early 2021? Maybe. Adding that it was direct in response.
Wasn't the end of the Mayan calendar?
Well, it was also direct response to the protests over George Floyd's murder in May of that year. They were using corporate money as kind of a backstop to buttress themselves against the defund the police movement. So they went to corporate America and said, look,
before they could infiltrate it.
Well, no, if they had already infiltrated it, but saying if the government is going to defund us, you want to fund us? We'll work for you guys instead. Or in addition, the corporate bankrollers of police foundations often appear to get good return on their investments, just like the people who invest in politicians. Right?
Yeah.
Target, for instance, has long funded surveillance and anti-crime programs in cities across the country, successfully promoting crackdowns on retail theft and petty crime in disinvested neighborhoods over other arguably more pressing community concerns. Like San Francisco, petty crime at CVS and shit. Yep. This is the one that really pissed me off, and that's like, I got to cover this. In St. Louis, the city's police chief receives $100,000 a year directly from the local police foundation in addition to his salary, an arrangement that critics say has ensured that the department is beholden to local business interests. How is that legal?
Okay.
How is that legal? Well, I'll tell you how, because it came from a charitable foundation.
100,000.
It was basically...
that's like just a write-off.
It was money laundering.
Yeah.
Straight up laundering corporate money into a quote-unquote charitable foundation that then found its way charitably into this police chief's bank account. Are you fucking kidding me? People should be going to jail over this shit. No paper trail.
But that won't happen.
Of course not, because previous research has shown that police foundations receive tens of millions of dollars annually from private donors. But the new research by Vargas and his co-authors shows that such local foundations are in fact part of a far broader network of nonprofits and funds dedicated to funneling private money and in-kind gifts to cops, one that involves hundreds of millions of dollars. This new study identified hundreds of dark money organizations that finance police departments, sometimes donating directly to law enforcement and sometimes donating to other police nonprofits, creating a tangled web of donors and intermediaries. Collectively, those organizations gave more than, ready for this number, $826 million in donations over a six-year period, but those organizations also reported revenues of more than $16 billion, according to the additional analysis researchers shared with the Lever.
A lot of money.
That's a lot of shkarol.
Yep.
The organizations include associations of sheriffs and police chiefs, national nonprofits like the Police Charity 100 Club, and private foundations like that of the wealthy police advocate Howard Buffett, the son of billionaire Warren Buffett. They're basically buying the favor of the cops.
Yep.
Allegedly.
Why wouldn't you? It's available. You know?
Sure.
I mean, mobsters did it for years. Now it's just different mobsters.
Exactly.
The mob is the police, don't you know?
Well, no, the police are just the enforcement for the mobsters, which are the billionaires, the oligarchs. This is an important set of findings because it reveals in real terms the amount of capital that's flowing, and it reveals the number of corporate nodes in the network. Financial services companies like Fidelity and Schwab also appear in the data as some of the biggest donors to police dark money groups. Of course, because they want to get the contract to actually fund this shit and finance it and run the programs. Both companies allow wealthy individuals to funnel money to nonprofits through donor-advised funds, and we talked about the Goldman Sachs one that actually funds the People's Forum in New York City. $19 million in 2019. Yeah, we see you guys. That are an increasingly popular way to anonymize donations and get a tax break at the same time. That came from the Goldman Sachs Charitable Fund. Various police foundations have begun advertising this funding arrangement as one way to donate. Launder money. Donate. The truth is that if somebody wanted to donate a lot of money and hide their tracks, all they would do is make a donation to a police nonprofit from a donor-advised fund, and then there's essentially no paper trail. How about that? So, while critics have pushed for additional transparency and regulation around donor-advised funds, describing them as an unaccountable form of billionaire philanthropy, like I said, billionaire money laundering philanthropy. Give me a fucking break. Because the only people who benefit from this are the stormtroopers and their bosses. Federal regulators have appeared hesitant to launch a major crackdown. I wonder why. Last November, the IRS proposed some modest limitations to their use to rein in spending on lobbying and other non-charitable causes, and police charities are, of course, among the entities that have opposed the new rules. Go figure. Why would they oppose it? Police foundations and other private donors have also found ways to limit disclosures about the gifts they provide to police, the researchers found. When the researchers looked at Chicago as a case study, they found that 90% of the private donations to police went unreported, revealing they wrote, police finance organizations' interest in keeping their funding of police secret.
Yeah.
Yes, mafia tactics. So for the most part, the millions in dark money funding the police agencies receive each year is perfectly legal, which is presenting a challenge for those who want to see greater transparency. And God forbid you get the lawmakers to actually do something about this. Yes, all one same. It is just a war against the people. It's all war against the people. For the most part, the millions, like we said, they don't want to see transparency. There are largely no laws or policies governing foundation donations to the police, said somebody from the at Color of Change, an advocacy group that has opposed corporate backing of police. The foundations have thus created a kind of loophole, and one that legally allows officers and departments to take gifts from vendors, sidestepping conflicts of interest and donor disclosure rules. Palantir, for instance, has donated to police foundations that subsequently funded law enforcement purchases of their own data analytics technology. Go figure. Even in places that require official city approval of gifts from foundations like LA, such a process has often appeared to be a formality, with gifts being rubber-stamped by local officials over the opposition of local communities and activists. What are they going to do? You're going to fire the cops over them taking a bribe or taking some kind of equipment, some kind of software that they say is going to help them police the community? They're going to set you up and try to make you look like you were the monster and preventing them from policing the community effectively. Garbage, right? Yep. Lawmakers are definitely on the take too, Mantis. Glad to see you here today. Cities must end these untraceable donations and require that any equipment, device, technology, or software that's purchased or donated through a police foundation is subject to disclosure, oversight, and accountability laws. Well, that sounds nice. Sure. Right? There has been some movement on the issue. In January, New York City enacted a law with the grudging support of local cops that'll require a police department to provide an annual report on how it spends the millions from private donations that it receives, both from the foundation and other sources, which it should. Unlike its use of public dollars, the department has not previously been required to disclose how it uses private funding. And they probably won't be moving forward. The law also requires the New York Police Department to provide information on its private donors, but because many of these donations are routed through the New York City Police Foundation, the donors will likely still remain anonymous. So,
keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Pretty much, that's what they want to do. Keep it secret. Yes, you know what, Cookies? It does sound exactly like racketeering. That is a good word. All right. They'll put a bag of coke in your pocket and bust you if you don't play their game. 100%. Allegedly, sir. Allegedly. All right. Yeah, just going through chats. Welcome to everybody over on the Rockfin and on the Rumble. I see Ghost Art in there. Those black sites are going to fund themselves. That's 100% right. Right. Let's sweep that out. So if you are chatting over on any of my channels, I can put that up here as well as over on the INN channels. Pretty cool stuff. Very exciting. Right? Was asking the local swine when we turn into the goddamn Soviet Union. Well, in some ways, I think that the Soviet Union would have been handling things a lot better. All right. So I have got a couple more stories. This one, we have not done a Moon of Alabama story in a while. I know. Come on. Say it, Reef. Correct me.
Alabama.
There you go. Thank you. So
it's just how you're supposed to say it. It's just, that's how it's said.
It's a very AOL chat board 2019 style of website that has some people that post to it and regular writers, and then like a bulletin board underneath it. And they'll repost articles like this. So this comments on Ted Snyder's antiwar.com article, Is America a Rogue Superpower? All right, and we'll get to that. But I like their commentary that they add on it. All right, that unipolar used to mean that the U.S. was, at least in theory, alone in leading the world. Now unipolar means that the U.S. is alone and isolated in opposition to the world. Right? Snyder refers to the recent UN Security Council resolution, which demands a ceasefire in Gaza and demands a release of hostages and demands the unhindered supply of food and other items to Gaza. The U.S., of course, has claimed...
And this is Dan Schneider?
This is Ted Snyder. Ted Snyder from Anti-War. No, not Dan Schneider. No, not no. Oh God, not the Nickelodeon guy. I would not like him. But the U.S. has continued to run around and scream that this resolution was non-binding. On March 25th, the U.S. went one step further and took a step toward becoming a rogue state who has supplanted international law with its rules-based order. International law is grounded in the charter system and the UN is universally applicable. The rules-based order is composed of unwritten laws whose source, consent, and legitimacy are unknown. To the global majority, these unwritten laws have the appearance of being invoked when they benefit the U.S. and its partners, and not being invoked when they don't. On March 25th, Security Council...
right. It's Rob Schneider. That's who I thought.
Derp. Rob Schneider is a carrot. No, it's not Rob Schneider either. On March 25th, the Security Council passed a resolution demanding that immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, respected by all parties, leading to a lasting, sustainable ceasefire. And of course, we know how Israel responded by bombing everywhere, including including Lebanon and Syria, in addition to Gaza. The resolution was able to pass because the U.S. stood aside and let the other 14 security members pass it by abstaining instead of vetoing. But in her explanation of the American abstention after the UN resolution passed, U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda the Butcher Thomas Greenfield, with blood on her hands, surprisingly said that we fully support some of the critical objectives in this non-binding resolution. Because she's so dumb, she didn't even know that she was not voting for a binding resolution. Her claim that the Security Council was non-binding was not an off-script, impromptu comment. It is the strategy of a country that enforces not international law, but the U.S.-led rules-based order. It only applies when we do it. It doesn't apply when we do it, only when others do it. Famous writer Arnaud Bertrand, the French author, French independent journalist, added a similar thought, quote, "Since the beginning, it's been obvious that Gaza was in many ways a fight between international law and U.S.'s rules-based order. This whole episode around the UN resolution is a perfect illustration of this. There is no debate amongst international law scholars that resolutions by the UN Security Council that demand certain actions are binding. In fact, resolutions by the Council are international law. Article 25 of the UN Charter clearly states that the members of the UN agree to accept and carry out the decisions of the Security Council in accordance with the present charter, quote unquote. Yet the US now argues that the rule is in fact different, that it's a non-binding resolution, so there's no impact at all on Israel." Wait, what? Yeah, they're really saying this. Where is this rule written? That somehow when the UNSC demands an immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, respected by all parties, leading to a lasting, sustainable ceasefire, it's not binding and there's no impact at all on the warring party? Nowhere. That's the beauty of the rules-based order. The rules are made up in the moment to fit the interests of the U.S. and its henchmen, depending on the circumstances. Yep. And that makes me think of the what is it? The character from Watchmen, the I made it up thing. Yes, yes.
Oh.
We made it up.
Yep.
The big issue here is that the whole world literally disagrees with the U.S. claims. Here's Ted Snyder again from Anti-War. All UN Security Council resolutions are legally binding and have the status of international law. That is why UN Secretary General Guterres said, quote, "This resolution must be implemented. Failure will be unforgivable." The problem is what are the consequences to the U.S. and to Israel by ignoring them? UN Deputy Spokesperson explained that all resolutions of the Security Council are international law. They are as binding as international laws, which a lot of people say you could wipe your ass with and that are equivalent to toilet paper in the first place. That's what I learned the minute I got into international business class.
Okay.
Seriously,
like international journalism school?
Well, once I got to college, no, when I was in college, I literally took, I minored in, my major was in business administration, specializing in international business. I was working for a company.
You should have thought bigger and went for interdimensional business. Like something, you know?
That would have been original, yes. Others responded the same way to the U.S. claim.
Yep.
Right? On behalf of the 10 elected members of the Security Council who drafted the resolution, Mozambique's envoy to the UN said all UN Security Council resolutions are binding and mandatory. He then added that it is the hope of the 10 that the resolution adopted today will be implemented in good faith by all parties, but we know that's not going to happen. The UK also did not share the U.S. claim, prompting their envoy to the UN to say, "We expect all council resolutions to be implemented. This one is not any different. Demands in this resolution are absolutely clear." Which is interesting because the UK is also...
We're sorry.
The UK is also helping to fund and arm Israel and sending soldiers over there who now should be prosecuted for war crimes the minute they return. But that's another story. What?
They also might want out, you know, like, you know, they're already getting a ton of slack for Elbit being there.
Yes.
Right? Like funding that. They're also getting slack for Ukraine funding too. Like, so, yes.
Mastermind,
nice
you're not supposed to tell anybody.
And not do that. International business?
Yes.
Big
no,
business.
He was a coke smuggler? No, I was not a coke smuggler. No, I was literally just studying. But yes, I thought it was funny anyway. That's very funny. Very good. Very good. The UK also did not
want people to know.
Did not share the U.S. claim, prompting their envoy to the UN to say, quote, "We expect all council resolutions to be intimate." Well, I read that one already. Sorry. France too rejects the U.S. claim and insists that that resolution is absolutely binding and especially binding for Israel. Again, who gives a fuck what France thinks? What are they going to do? Oh, Maurice Chevalier. Oh, we are all Maurice Chevalier now. Oh. Anyway,
we still want to send troops to Ukraine, but
Day 177 Ghost Art posted over on Rumble. During the past 24 hours, 8 massacres committed by the Israeli occupation. Allegedly, 77 people killed and 108 injured. It happened. It's happening every day during Ramadan. They're ignoring it. They're flouting it. They're giving us all the middle finger while they're doing so.
Yeah.
Of course, Russia's foreign ministry and
would the French give the middle finger?
Well, they
I feel
can't.
Like they would use something else.
They can't. Well, they would use the well, no, you remember the story. No, it's actually the British. You can't, I block me you. Yes, okay. They cut the middle fingers off. That's why you get the middle finger of the thing. Anyway, Russia.
Not true, but good story, isn't it?
Well, yes.
You know.
Russia, by the way, did you know that the Russian, that the UN ambassador to Russia at the United Nations was on INN on Friday talking with Parody here, so you can go back and check that out. His name is Dmitry. Go check him out. That was an interesting half-hour sit-down. Yes, Polyansky. I didn't want to butcher it, but and Russia's foreign ministry said Tuesday
this very thing.
That the UN security resolution, which calls for an immediate ceasefire, is absolutely binding, right? Including providing the Israeli Operation Rafah, freeing hostages, and increasing humanitarian assistance to civilians in the sector. For the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, including 2 major U.S. allies, all of its non-permanent members, and the UN Security Secretary General have explicitly said that the resolution is binding. The U.S., plus a few of its minor proxies, is the only state which publicly disputes that it's not. That whether it's binding or not. So the problem is that this is going to have huge consequences. Huge consequences. Why? There's no overstating how consequential this is for the integrity of the international relations, because by doing so, the U.S. effectively destroys the world order it largely created after World War II, because it effectively tells everyone that the set of institutions, rules, and norms that underpin it are meaningless. We're effectively now in a world system where everyone realizes the police, the government, the basic set of beliefs have become completely corrupted. Welcome to the United States of America, sir. This changes everything. Yes. Well, what comes next? I think there's no coming back.
What?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. But it's not just Joe. What comes next?
It's not Joe.
I think there's no coming back for the U.S. And I think they know this, maybe unconsciously. Otherwise, they'd at least pretend to act for the better good of all. But the fact that they don't shows they've effectively abdicated ambitions to restore their hegemony. Now they're nakedly in it to milk the system for themselves. Universal pretensions have gone. That is really poetry right there. Arnold Bertrand. Follow him on.
Nakedly milking the system, are they?
Yes, they are.
Interesting.
This UN Security Council is not the only institution, of course, which the U.S. tries to destroy after having largely created it. The WTO lost its appeal court in 2019 thanks to Trump. Right? He just decided that he was going to ignore it. The U.S. is now using protectionism, subsidies, and tariffs, which are clearly illegal under WTO rules it had previously agreed to. But as it's managed, without having any serious argument to destroy the WTO's court, theirs is no longer a direct way that they can be penalized at all for it. But trade is only one field which international relations and other WTO members have found ways to solve disputes other ways, even without the court. The stakes are much higher when it comes to matters of peace and of wars waged with the intent of genocide. Bertrand says and concludes with, most countries don't want to live in eat or get eaten, might makes right world without rules or norms. So in time, a new system will arise, most likely led by China and BRICS, I will add. The biggest unknowns being, can it arise without a major global war? I'm guessing not, sadly. Who will lead the construction of its foundations? Like I said, it will likely be BRICS. And how can it be set up so that this time around it's fair for all and respected by all? That I don't know, because as Jimmy Dore very much says, the U.S. is now the terrorists. Like, we're just going and lighting shit on fire and destroying shit. We're like that guy who, before he runs out of the restaurant, knocks all the stuff over, so they have to spend the next half hour cleaning shit up, rather than actually making stuff better. Doesn't help anybody.
Fucking stop.
Right? Yeah.
Who are these people?
That guy. So, yeah, it's bad that, we've been exposed as, just blindly running for profit at this point and milking it for all we possibly can for as long as we possibly can remaining. And yet another example of this capitalistic exploitation and degradation of our entire country was on full display this week in Baltimore. Let's go here. I like this one better today. Baltimore, but not just Baltimore. This was our friend Stephanie B over at Holistic. Holistic is a good Substack. Go subscribe to them. I don't always like what she writes, but this one I thought was really good. We know that on Tuesday, and by the way, I published and collected some articles and some stuff. You can subscribe over at indiemedia.today, and you can find an article with the actual footage of the ship hitting the bridge stanchion. But a massive container ship hit the Key Bridge in Baltimore last night. Now, this could have been a simple accident, and I'm not saying that it wasn't. So this is her initial reaction the morning after, when I started compiling my thread. She says, however, I get very suspicious when immediately, before any sort of real investigation is done, the media starts coming out with these headlines saying that there's no evidence of a terror attack. The FBI is in part responsible for this. It's a knee-jerk reaction to any sort of event that happens. This isn't a terrorist attack, quote. Now, if it were, it wasn't an attack on people. It was an attack on a major port on the U.S. East Coast of the United States. Disabling and disrupting this port will cost millions, if not billions, in terms of economic damage to the region. Definitely billions. It'll bottleneck the supply chain and cause many other problems. It also did cause the death of 6 people, so I don't think that it's accurate to say that it wasn't an attack on people. But it wasn't. Even if it were, the ships that are already in Baltimore Harbor are not able to leave right now, and other ships are not able to come into the harbor. They've been rerouted to Virginia. I live in the area, Stephanie does, and she can easily walk down to the water and look over to see the large ships coming through the Chesapeake Bay to the Patapsco River. These ships are massive.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, a ship ran aground near Baltimore because the captain was an idiot, apparently, so accidents can and will happen. However, we have had a series of small and not so small acts of possible sabotage in the United States for the last year or so, including many train derailments and other events that the mainstream or corporate-funded media tends to downplay. You can't ignore this Baltimore bridge collapse because the bridge was part of the beltway surrounding the city, and thus it was a major artery in the region. Also, the Port of Baltimore is a very important port, as she's already said, so the event can't be swept under the rug. But it would certainly be easy to sweep under the rug any sort of international sabotage. And here's the thing, what if there are saboteurs who are going around and causing problems by mucking up equipment? We've seen trains having problems, planes having problems, and now ships having problems. I don't think I'm being stupid by questioning whether all these events are somehow related and potentially acts of even small-scale sabotage and potentially even connected, which she doesn't say.
Well, it also speaks to the fact of, like, which we talked about in the story earlier, of empire death and infrastructure failing and corporations, like, completely dysregulating safety and, at the same time. Like, it's probably a twofold problem.
Well,
not to say that it couldn't be malicious.
She starts asking these questions. Could we also have a network of malicious idiots running around who are purposely throwing monkey wrenches into the works? Why not? Our country's divided and people are angry. Could we have foreign agents who are quietly causing problems with equipment and causing malfunctions to destabilize the U.S. economy? Why not? That'd be a smart thing to do if you were trying to take the United States down without getting into a hot war. You wouldn't want to take any credit for it either. You just want to quietly do your thing and just whistle on by. Would it be possible that there are agents who are committing acts of sabotage where they have been so careful that they've covered it up and the people of the FBI aren't able to figure it out or don't want to expose it because it exposes their incompetence and their lack of actually doing police work rather than cleanup work? I added that last part. That's entirely possible too. And it's entirely possible in part because I don't have confidence anymore that the people being hired by our government are actually smart people. This isn't even about DEI, which a lot of the Boeing people were screaming about. The right-wingers were screaming about Boeing's DEI initiative as one of the reasons why safety standards have dropped. And I meant to mention that, but I didn't. It's simply about the fact that America has gotten so dumbed down that everybody is dumber, whether they're DEI hires or not. So I'm on the side of this could possibly be sabotage, and I'm not writing that off. When I heard about the news late last night, I'd actually gotten up to use the bathroom and checked my phone, and so I saw a lot of people on Twitter getting mad at anybody who was suggesting that it was a terrorist attack or a cyber attack or potential sabotage. They were acting like anybody who questioned that was an accident, that it was an accident, was being an idiot. All right. It's funny because, and this is the reason why I brought this article. She says, to me, this is about the dumbest position you can take. That this, of course, was just an accident. You have zero information on what happened other than what you're being told. It's totally fine to speculate, and why people get so offended by that is beyond me. But really what gets me is how arrogant these people are. They're shitlibs, right? There's a stupid level of arrogance that I see show up in the people who take on mainstream establishment narrative. They can be so mind-numbingly dumb, and I'm sorry to use that word, but they're stupid. And yet they're so convinced that they're right that they're arrogant to the point of insufferability. They won't give an inch on any sort of issue. This definitely sounds like shitlibbery to me. She says, see, I'm going to give here and give an inch here, or even more than an inch. This could totally have been an accident. Other ships have collided with bridge supports before, and it wasn't terrorism or sabotage. So yes, it could be an accident. But I'm also skeptical, and I think that it's possibly not an accident. I will also tell you that I'm also a bit intuitive, and I will say that last night I had a really bad feeling before I went to bed, and I was kind of wondering and waiting for something to hit the news. Really? Really? Okay. Because I wasn't sure what it was, and I have a good track record on this because I posted here on Substack a week before the Hamas terror attacks that I thought a 9/11 type event terrorist attack was going to happen. So basically, you read media cues. So I'm not going to go on and say I'm a full-blown psychic, but I'm definitely intuitive. Now, my bad feeling could just be that there was a major terrorist attack in Moscow, and we have Easter coming up. France is on high alert, as well as the U.S. Embassy in France, so I won't be surprised if there's another massive terror event on Easter Sunday. Thankfully, nothing has happened, which also happens to be her birthday this year. Happy birthday, Stephanie. I'm also now looking forward to it because of this reason. So she can be on edge, just be on edge in general. Her bad feeling could have nothing to do with that ship hitting the bridge last night. That said, the people who immediately discount that there's any sort of potential sabotage are immediately short-sighted and not thinking clearly. Why they think they're cool for buying into the mainstream now narrative is beyond me. It's literally like the current thing, people. It's the weirdest thing to me ever. She says, when I was younger, the last thing that would make me cool would be a mainstream person, and now being a mainstream is somehow cool. Well, at least they think it's cool. I certainly don't. And I've also noticed this also in relation to the speculations regarding COVID vaccines, allegedly safe and effective, and Kate Middleton's cancer diagnosis, allegedly, whatever that is. And that's the first and only time you're going to hear us talk about that. People are morally upset that anybody might be suggesting that it could have been caused or aggravated by the jabs because they're safe and effective and they could possibly never have done that. No. My heart swells with pride just thinking about it. Along with that, there's been a noted increase, at least what I've seen, of bot accounts and paid shill accounts and other accounts that are aggressively going after anyone who questions the narrative on vaccinations. How about that? In fact, one of those shills just showed up on Holistic News just today. And mind you, Holistic's been around for a couple of years now, and I've been surprised that there haven't been more shills coming here to argue with me, but for whatever reason, today, here we go. Here's some arrogant jerk over on Holistic News being snarky and stupid about the possibility of ADE with COVID jabs. I don't even know what ADE is. Auto something. This was in response to a study that showed that people who had the booster shots didn't actually get any new antibodies with the new version of the spike protein. So why is this person here all of a sudden, and why do they even care? But I see this all over Twitter right now. She calls it X, I call Twitter. Constantly in my feed. People who claim that the shots could not possibly cause cancer, that ivermectin doesn't work 100%, and that all the stuff that I would think that the majority of people would have moved on from a couple of years ago at this point. But no, these people are ramping up the propaganda. You know why? Because it's an election year. Like she said, now we're in an election year here in the United States, and the administration that's currently in power will want to stay in power. And as you know, this goes for any administration of any political party, so this isn't necessarily partisan. The party that's in power wants to stay in power, and it's going to make them look bad if there's a terrorist attack, so they'll try to diminish it if they can. Now, they probably have some sort of contingency for if there's a massive terrorist attack that they can't possibly deny prior to the election. But in the case of something like this, where a ship hits a bridge, that sort of terrorist attack is easily swept under the rug and can completely be minimized, so they don't have to speak to the issue of all of the people that we have coming into this country that have not been vetted. They'll try to keep the country as locked down as possible prior to the election because terrorism will not help Biden win. It'll help Trump. That's a good point. That's a very good point, actually. They might also be wanting to help clamp down any sort of issues with the vaccinations, although to me, this hurts both Biden and Trump, so it's kind of a wash. In that sense, maybe that's more Pfizer paying people to go around and push their propaganda, which is quite possible, allegedly. I mean, when I see someone who claims to be not just a health lawyer, but an ICU doctor on Twitter, and they have enough time to be posting constantly and arguing with people about the merits of the jabs, I question whether that's a real person. A real ICU doctor wouldn't have the time to do that, much less a real lawyer. And now you're telling me that a doctor-lawyer combo has time to be spewing Pfizer propaganda on Twitter? I'm sorry, no. That person's being paid to do that. So at any rate, to wrap this up, I'm seeing a lot more paid shows online, and I'm seeing a lot more pushback against any sort of questioning of official narratives, even if it's simply to speculate whether a ship hitting a major bridge blocking a key port on the east coast of the United States was sabotaged. The paint questioning the reason the ship hit a bridge as stupid or an offensive thing to do. I'm sorry. I will speculate until the cows come home. Why are people suddenly making a big stink about this? I think they're trying to control the narrative. What do you think?
Clearly. What do I think? Well, I don't know if her conclusions are accurate, but she's definitely asking some questions that you probably should be. You know, clearly there's a lot of... I still haven't been able to vet that video I sent you the other day about the black box being missing.
Yes.
And them throwing the anchor on the wrong side. That
oh my God! If that's the case, holy moly! Right?
Yeah, something's and like 2 minutes of the black box footage is missing, and of course, it's 2 minutes we need to know. I don't know. Haven't been able to vet that info, so.
Lost Adult says stupid shit happens on ships, and I'm not going to argue with that.
Yes, frequently.
If the old man was so stupid as to go astern when he was on course to go under the bridge, I don't think you should expect him to be competent at anything else. Again, not arguing with any of that.
It's more. Yeah, I broke down a lot of it this week
on INN News. You should definitely go back and watch that too, for sure.
I mean, the issue is that like it's really hard to maneuver ships that large with any like semblance of, you know, like they're put them in a straight line and they'll go that way for a long time. You want them to stop, you're going to need room. You know, like you're going to need lots of stuff. Like just turning a ship that large is not an easy task.
No.
You know?
Now, again, this is alleged. I'm going to put this video up. Reef shared it with us. Reef shared it with me.
Sure.
It's on Twitter. And this is from Concerned Citizen, which is literally at B Gates is a psycho. So
Bill Gates is a psycho.
So take that with a grain of salt for what it is. But consider your sources always. But I thought this should be brought because I haven't really heard anybody talking about this.
Of course, the black box from the ship that hit that bridge is missing 2 minutes of sensor data and steering inputs. Why wouldn't it? And of course, the ship managed to somehow defy the laws of physics. If you're unaware of what I'm talking about, go ahead and put your tinfoil hat on and follow me. But we have 2 new revelations about that ship hitting the bridge. The first is what Gen Z would refer to as sus. But the second thing is impossible. So let me give you the sus shit first.
Okay,
so they recovered the black box from the ship. They recovered the black box completely intact because why wouldn't they? The ship didn't fucking sink. Then the NTSB informed us that 2 minutes is missing. And it just so happens to be the 2 minutes leading up to the crash. Even though, as we all know, a black box is supposed to have a backup power supply so you never stop recording. But nevertheless, some very strategic 2 minutes is just fucking gone. And the sad part is that's the more reasonable part of the 2 things we just found out. Like the second thing is not just sus, it's impossible. So here's a very short clip of what the NTSB just said.
27 and 4 seconds. The pilot ordered the Dali to drop the port anchor.
If you don't know anything about ships and boats, that might not sound that fucked up to you. So let me just show you. You heard him say that they dropped the port anchor. And the port side of a ship is the left side. Let's all have a basic understanding of physics here for a second. They dropped the anchor on the left side of this fucking ship. How the fuck did this ship turn right? That's not possible. It's just not. You cannot drop an anchor off this side and make the ship go that way. Like, look, I understand that the Biden administration is not good at much. But one thing I thought they were very good at was lying to my face.
Not at all.
Genuinely getting away with it. How do you have a government that is also packed full of lawyers and spies, and you still somehow suck at lying to the American people? Now we're supposed to just accept that we're missing 2 minutes from a black box that was completely self-contained and had backup power. And it just so happens that those are the 2 most crucial fucking minutes. And then we're supposed to believe that a ship just said, fuck physics. I'm voting for the fucking asteroid in November.
None of the above. None of the above. If that is real.
Well.
Oh, here. Somebody said they dropped Mastermind says they dropped the starboard anchor.
Okay. I don't know why they wouldn't drop both. Like you're not, depending on how deep the harbor is, your anchor might not even make it to the fucking, you think in harbor it makes it to the floor, but it's not going to do that in seconds,
Again, that's allegedly.
You'll have some drag on each side, but
that's allegedly.
Yeah, I've not even heard if they did that or not. So,
right?
Yeah. I mean, the issue is that you're fucking trying to turn lots and lots of tons of ship and cargo.
Yes.
That
very much
right.
All right. So I got one more story. We may actually run a little bit over. I don't know. We'll be doing both. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll do boats afterwards. But in the meantime, I wanted to cover this because we love Stefania Maurizi. We always are talking about what's going on with Assange news. But this, again, is a story I haven't seen anybody talking about, which is that Stefania, who is the FOIA queen, I don't know if you are aware of who Stefania Maurizi is. Follow her on Twitter at @smaurizi, Maurizi. She's an Italian journalist. All of a sudden I hear myself echoed, but that's okay. What she learned in this new FOIA release that was published just the other day, on Tuesday, was that exclusive FOIA documents expose how in July 2010, when WikiLeaks hadn't even published the secret files on the war in Afghanistan, a large-scale investigation on WikiLeaks had already been launched, with the American authorities relying on spies, informants, and hidden microphones. This is in 2010. And yet, U.S. authorities had no certainty that the WikiLeaks journalist who had chatted with Chelsea Manning was actually Julian Assange. The WikiLeaks founder had denounced spying and surveillance tactics against WikiLeaks, from the very beginning, and many media had dismissed those concerns as paranoia, documents vindicate Assange. Once again, he was right. What are we talking about? Well, again, Stefania has been relentless in pursuing and filing FOIA requests with governments all over the world to learn about what they knew about Julian Assange and what they were communicating about Julian Assange. And what she says here is that U.S. authorities considered detaining him at the U.S. border in July 2010 before WikiLeaks had revealed the secret documents on the war in Afghanistan and had enlisted at least one informer willing to wear a microphone to spy on conversations about WikiLeaks during a well-known hackers conference in New York to which Assange had been invited. Now it makes me think that the invite itself was a setup to try to nab him. Just 12 weeks after WikiLeaks published the collateral murder video, the U.S. investigation into WikiLeaks involved several military units, including Army intelligence agents, agents with the Department of the Army CID, the Computer Crimes Investigative Unit, and Army CID and attorneys. But despite all these investigative resources, 4 months after the arrest of Chelsea Manning, U.S. authorities had yet to establish with certainty that the person who had talked to Manning under the nickname Nathaniel Frank was in fact Julian Assange. Revealing this information for the first time are exclusive documents we've been able to obtain after a lengthy battle under FOIA in the United States against the State Department. They reveal what happened behind the scenes in those months of 2010 when WikiLeaks published the classified U.S. documents for which Assange now risks 175 years in a maximum security prison. Wow. After publishing the collateral murder video, WikiLeaks became an international phenomenon. On July 7, 2010, U.S. authorities wrote, quote, Army CID developed a plan to conduct surveillance in New York City in mid-July at a large gathering of well-known computer hackers. Army CID believes that the WikiLeaks case will be a topic of discussion and have enlisted a cooperating individual, a CI, to assist in their investigation. Army CID anticipates that the founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, may attend the conference. The large gathering in New York was, and still is, one of the most important hackers conferences in the U.S. That year, Hackers on Planet Earth, or HOPE, was to be held July 16th through 18th, a week before WikiLeaks published the Afghan war logs. I didn't know any of this stuff, right? Chelsea Manning, who of course we know is the source who leaked the classified U.S. documents to WikiLeaks, had already been arrested on May 27, 2010, after confessing during a chat with Adrian Lamo, despite having never met him before, that it was she who had leaked these documents to WikiLeaks. The files included classified U.S. Army information and around 260,000 U.S. diplomatic cables. What better opportunity for the American authorities than to nab Assange at the HOPE conference? Army CID may attempt to detain Assange at the New York-Canadian border if they get information about its arrival, FOIA documents read. However, Assange did not travel to the United States. American investigative journalist and computer security expert Jacob Applebaum gave a keynote address at HOPE on his behalf. Sounds like he may have known something was up. And not only that, he was a week away from publishing. Yep. He was head down, man. He was nowhere near being able to attend a conference like this. Despite the HOPE conference being a public event, FOIA documents reveal that the Army CID had a cooperating individual who has agreed to wear a microphone while attending the HOPE conference. It is reasonable to conclude that the microphone was presumably intended to spy on private conversations regarding WikiLeaks, considering the public talks and conversations held were accessible to everyone. Yeah, why wear a wire to a place that it's public keynotes? Obama gave his keynote, then flew to Europe, but upon his return to the U.S., was detained and interrogated at the airport. By the way, they do this to every independent journalist now. That is standard procedure. They detained Caleb Maupin, I believe, when he returned from the U.S., from Russia after observing their elections. And I believe they did the same to Dan Kovalet. Although the U.S. authorities could rely on microphones, informants, and considerable resources, almost 4 months after Manning had been arrested, they were apparently not yet certain that Nathaniel Frank, with whom Manning had chatted before passing on the U.S. classified documents, was actually Julian Assange. They believed it, but they didn't know. There's a minority opinion that Frank could be a WikiLeaks associate. Okay, that's what a FOIA document dated in September 2010 says. The name of the WikiLeaks associate is redacted in the FOIA document, as are many other items of information. We will soon be initiating a legal battle to get those redactions removed. The U.S. authorities have obstructed the FOIA process. Yeah, I want to know who the rat is, who they think that was going to wear a wire. The U.S. authorities have obstructed the FOIA process for years. In our FOIA litigation, we've been represented completely pro bono by two American lawyers, Alia Smith and Lauren Russell, with the Ballard Spahr law firm. Quote, we've been frustrated by the incredible amount of time it's taken for the Department of State to complete the processing on Maurizi's FOIA request, they told FQX. Even given the complications of reviewing during COVID, the years of delay have been unacceptable. We are glad to have helped our client get the bulk of the requested records, albeit 6 years since she submitted her FOIA request, and hope this matter can finally come to a close soon. Contacted by Il Fatto Quotidiano and asked to comment on these revelations, WikiLeaks editor Kirsten Hernafson replied, quote, it is worrying that Julian was in the U.S.'s crosshairs this early. It shows the early determination by the U.S. administration to stifle journalism when it suits them, unquote. Well, yeah.
Well, this is the problem with the plea deal, too, that has been talked about recently. Because, like, I think didn't we read somewhere that for those plea deals, he has to come over here anyway to, like, do that?
I did not read that,
and
but
like him being on U.S. soil,
right?
I distinctly remember that like they couldn't do it over the phone or whatever, and that was an issue. You know, like,
as you see in the chat, free Julian Assange.
So
journalism is not a crime.
Yep,
this man should be free, 100%. So I did get through the 5 stories. Look at that within the 2-hour window. I like that. That's really cool. I did not even have like the end of show stuff brought up. So if I go to here, let's just bring this up real quick. What the weekly update looked like and what we have this week coming up, in case you guys don't make it through boats.
Coming to a Substack newsletter near you.
Last Sunday, if you missed it, Jesse was on the Concerts for Assange. Let's go back to this here. All right. So every week, every Friday afternoon, evening, I publish this weekly update that is literally a list of all of the live streams and appearances for all of the INN members. That is Angel and Misty and Jesse and me and Reef and Colin and Snow Hembo and Chris Legion and Rob Durden and everyone here at INN. So Yeti Jesus, of course, he's going to be back with the breadlines coming soon. So this week we had like 9 live streams and like another 9 appearances. There's our thank you and our donor list. We appreciate anyone who joins that or subscribes. Thank you so much for that. All right. And then we've got embeds of all the different appearances or links to them so that you can see them all neatly handy. There's Big Mad Crab. He had Snow Himbo on Politically Homeless this week, all in one place. Nice and easy, right?
Yep.
So subscribe to this, indienewsnetwork.substack.com. It'll come out every Sunday.
Coming to a
I'm sorry, every Friday.
Substack newsletter near you.
Every time I say that, he's going to post. He's going to play that. Also, there is this calendar.
Yep.
Now, this calendar is probably going to look a lot like this week as well. We will be having An American Tradition on Tuesday night. So we've got already Saturday and Sunday are going to be done. Tuesday, we're going to have Jesse. Wednesday, we're going to have INN News. Thursday, I'm not sure yet. Friday, we are going to have a Tara show. She's already said she's going to have Angela McCardle from the Libertarian Party. And 7 p.m. will be episode 50 of Angel in the Afternoon. Congrats to Angel on that. Like you see above us is that QR code over Reef's head. That is so that we can buy some new equipment for Jesse and hook up all of our friends and the INN members. So if you can donate there and support, we really appreciate it. Anna Mayers over on the Rockfin has been phenomenal. Love you. She says she just hung up her new punching bag. Come fight her, bro. I don't want to fight you. You're awesome. So no, we don't want to do that. Really appreciate all the support, everything that everybody does. Oh, we know Reef likes
right.
Reef's a fighter. Yes. Now, Assange's attorneys have stated there is no plea deal. Very important. Go start over on the Rumble. All right. He also said that a ship steering has a backup system. Boats, yes, kill your egregores. We are going to have boats. And Reef is going to put that link in the chat. Now, we are also, this on YouTube will automatically direct you to the boat stream. It should on both channels, whether you're on INN or on my channel. It should direct you to the boats stream for that channel automatically after I kill the stream and it's all over. So we will see you at midnight. We're going to take a little 10-minute break. We'll be back. I love you. I appreciate you all. Support independent media. We need it more than ever. Let's go back to this. Our two-shot over here. Yes, there will be boats. Boats smashing into other boats will be coming up midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific time. Boats and hose. That's right. Rick Solis. Good to see you, Rick Solis. Got to have my boats and hose. Zombie in the Air, V.S. Adams. We got the whole family here. I'm so glad to see everybody. There's Reef putting it up in the chat. For those who didn't know and those who actually care, we actually got a new chat program so that now we can run Rockfin and Rumble chats simultaneously to the YouTube and the Twitter and the Twitch chats. We're not on Twitter actually tonight. YouTube and Twitch, Rockfin, Rumble, we can put them all up now. So go over to Rumble and watch on Rumble. David DeNuno, good to see you. I wasn't expecting boats tonight. We do boats every Sunday night after we finish How Do We Miss That? And we start that at midnight. And we're going to do it on a separate stream. We used to do it all in one stream and go right into boats. Go ahead.
I'll also put a straw poll in the chat for people if they want next week to have a Rumble boats instead. I'd like to get more than 6. What do you say, Indy? How many people should vote before that happens?
I think we need at least 10 votes to make that happen.
20, 30.
I would very much like to see.
So,
okay, Lost Adult.
I'd like to see 20 people there on Rumble, at least.
Yep. Ships have a backup pump.
You're good.
Powered off the main bus. When you hit an astern bell with 12 knots of way, your rudder is fucking useless. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you got too much tonnage moving. So,
someone who knows boats.
You know.
Praise the Messiah, Brian of Nazareth. Oh boy, are we at the life of Brian again? Nobody expect a Spanish Inquisition? All right. This was fun. Like I say every week, I'm not sure I'm not sure I had stories and was going to do this, and sure enough, we come up with it every Sunday. So thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll see you in about 10 minutes on boats. I love you all. Support independent media.
Keep listening to Little Boats. I have to tell you. Be back in a bit.
I think I liked it better being blind when I couldn't read between the lines. And when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time, I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?